You are LockedOn Braves POSTCAST, part of LockedOn Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
And hello and welcome into the Braves POSTCAST, part of the LockedOn Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley alongside Jake Mastroianni. After the Braves, they got the bounce-back effort they were looking for as they begin a 9-game homestand on the right track, on the right foot, as some would say, with a 6-1 win over the Pittsburgh Pirates in the opener of a 3-game series. It's still going to have some intrigue this weekend, which we'll get into later, but we really wanted to see if the Braves offense could shake off a couple of bad games and get back on track the way it had been over the final couple of weeks of June. The answer to that question was yes, in the form of a 5-run third inning. We're going to talk all about that, the performance of Charlie Morton, and, of course, preview that Max Freid versus Paul Skenes matchup that comes our way on Saturday. Before we do any of that, though, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube, subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts, and today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right way to make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Well, Jake, I think the Braves are happy to have an extended stay, if you'll pardon the pun, at Truist Park. It's a great opportunity for them to beat a couple of teams that have struggled this year and have battled even just to get to 500. And there's a little matchup with the Philadelphia Phillies looming around the corner as well. But you have to, as you would say, take care of business. And the Braves did that on Friday night at Truist Park.
They did, and it's something it hasn't been a given this year. As much as they did it last year, they beat up on these teams that they really should be. We haven't seen that a lot this season. So great to see them do that after, as we talked about yesterday, winning or losing one of the most winnable games I think they'll have all year on paper, to bounce back like that and have a pretty, stress-free win in this one on Friday night to get a series started ahead of that great pitching matchup on Saturday. And good to be back home.
Yeah, and there was some great pitching on the mound for the Braves in this night in the form of Charlie Morton. And I know we'll talk about the offense, which broke out, scoring 5 times in the third inning, building up a 6-0 lead. The Pirates able to break up the shutout in the ninth, but really that may be more of a moral victory than anything else for Pittsburgh to avoid the shutout. But either way, a 6-1 win for the Braves, who moved themselves back to 10 games over 500. And a large part of this, in addition to some offense that the Braves very much wanted to get back to, was the pitching of Charlie Morton, who worked into the 7th inning. Scoreless baseball, 3 hits, 7 strikeouts. Jake, I thought he looked great and really seemed to have everything working on this night. The control, the command, the execution, whatever you want to call it. It was all there for Charlie Morton, and the results speak for themselves.
Especially after that first couple of innings, he walked a batter, hit a batter in those first couple innings. But outside of that, really dialed things in. The curveball was working all night. That changeup, threw some really good changeups in this one. So this was just, it's Charlie Morton. I mean, again, it's a 40-year-old who's going out there. We say it all the time. Any team in baseball would take him as their fourth starter. He has his up and downs, but when he's on like this, he's still capable of racking up the strikeouts. 7 strikeouts in this one, a great performance. Mentioned he just had the 1 walk and only allowed 3 hits. And it's what he is capable of doing when he is dialed in with that command. So it's why Charlie Morton is still a very good pitcher in this Braves rotation. He has the opportunity and the ability to go out and give you performances like this as he did on Friday.
Yeah, and it was a performance that the Braves very much wanted to see to help lay that foundation to allow the offense to get to work, and they did so early. Austin Riley homer in the second to get the Braves on the board, but it was Marcell Ozuna's 3-run double that highlighted a 5-run third-inning rally that put the Braves firmly in the driver's seat and gave Charlie Morton all the support that he was going to need on this night. But, Jake, as far as the offense goes, and I know we weren't harping on, a couple of bad games means the Braves were all the way back to square one the way they were, as they struggled all the way through the month of May and into the month of June. But I will say this, and maybe it's the most obvious statement I'll make on the show, but tune in for the remainder of the final 25 minutes or so to see if I can outdo it. You just needed to see it again for the Braves to have a big inning and have everybody contributing.
You did, and this was one of those nights, again, I talk about it on here, where everybody, contributed in some way. Everybody except RC had a hit, and he had a walk in this one. So everybody reached base in this game, and that's what you want to see. Did it a little unusual. Only 5 hard hit balls by the Braves in this game. That is not something we're accustomed to seeing. But again, they ended up with 10 hits, had several walks in this game as well. I think you saw a little bit different approach from some hitters in this one. Matt Olson in particular, who's been struggling lately. We saw him just shoot a couple balls to left field for some easy singles, maybe to hopefully get him on track. You saw Luke Williams get that rally started in the third inning by just shooting a ball on the outer half the other way. So again, it's going to be hard for the Braves to just sit here and change strategy. And I'm not necessarily saying they need to, but I have said they need to find other ways to try to manufacture runs and piece hits together to have these big innings. And this was a good example of them being able to do that. And it helps when you get your best hitter up in the biggest spot of the game. And that's what happened there in that inning.
Yeah, and he was able to hit a ball that couldn't be tracked down by an opposing outfielder, which was not the case when he could have really turned things around in that 1-0 loss to the White Sox. But Ozuna had himself an opportunity in the very next day to come up in a big spot and deliver for the Braves, and he did just that, scoring 3 runs on that double. You talking about hard hit balls? I'd say Austin Riley hit the ball pretty hard his first time up. The home run for him just continues to turn it around and completely get his season on track. He has played some great third base. I think we saw a couple of more plays tonight, examples of just how good Austin Riley's been with the leather. But he has really, I think, made his name by being one of the best slugging third basemen in all of baseball, and that's what he's become over the last couple of weeks. Back on the 13th of June, I would have told you to look at the stats for Austin Riley, and you would have said he's batting .220 with 3 homers. Well, all he's done since then is hit 6 home runs and get his season on track, hitting nearly 400 over the last couple of weeks. Jake, you're talking about things you needed to see that are nice to see, whatever you want to call it. Austin Riley getting back to his slugging ways, that's something that the Braves very much need to get this offense on track and going the way that they know that it can and the way that they know that it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, he has been your number 3 hitter for, a couple of seasons now. I know Marcel's kind of moved into that role, but this is the guy you really lean on to be there and provide that power. So it's great to see him getting back to that. This ball that he hit tonight, just story time for a minute. I was eating dinner with the family and I just heard it hit the bat. And I just immediately said, that's gone. I mean, it made that kind of sound on the broadcast. You could hear it. Now, I did turn around to see, it's going to center field. And with the baseballs this year, I don't know. But this one, I mean, he absolutely tore it. 107.2, 29-degree launch angle, 423 feet. I mean, he got every bit of that baseball. So, even in some of these games, like I said, on Thursday, he also had a ball that I thought was gone, was ripped into the alley, and Luis Robert able to run it down. He's been, making a lot of great contact here lately. So good to see him getting that power stroke back. Like I said, being back at home where the Braves have had a little bit more success offensively. Maybe the ball is traveling a little bit better there. But either way, that one was just tattooed. So it's great to see that from Riley. It's a guy you knew he's going to get going at some point, struggled to the beginning of the year like a lot of Braves hitters, but he seems to be back on track.
Yeah, even some of the outs are starting to get pretty loud or have been pretty loud the past couple of weeks for Riley. You said story time and went through that whole thing. You talked about the sound of the ball. It reminded me of Buck O'Neil and Kim Burns baseball, talking about hearing Babe Ruth or Josh Gibson hit that ball. Well, Austin Riley is starting to really make some connections. I don't know if he'll end up in the stratosphere of baseball's all-time greats or have a documentary about this ball he hit tonight. But again, the Braves needed to see this. Riley has been giving them some really steady production over the past couple of weeks. And if he can keep that up, he's a big key to what the Braves are trying to accomplish at the plate. No two ways about it. Nice to see the big inning, most certainly, and for Charlie Morton to get this solid outing. It has been an up and down season for him at times. We talked a little bit about it already. We'll talk some more about it as we go along. The Braves bullpen also able to come in and pretty much keep the Pirates handcuffed for the most part over the final, 2 2/3 innings in this one. And the ageless wonder, Jesse Chavez, who followed Charlie Morton right out of the bullpen, the only set of 40-year-old teammates in baseball. They were at it again, and just showing that, I guess, Jake, in a lot of ways, age is just a number.
It certainly is for Jesse Chavez and Charlie Morton. And, Chavez can't even keep his glasses on straight, and he's still striking batters out up there. But it's just, it's an incredible story. It's incredible, having both these guys. It feels good for me to getting closer to that point where everybody in the big leagues is going to be older than me. So it's nice to have these couple of guys who make me feel like maybe I still got a chance to get back in there, Grant.
No, you mean you're going to be older than everybody in the big leagues?
Yes.
Okay. Well, see, I was hanging on to Albert Pujols. That was the only guy I had left. And when he retired, that was the end of it for me. There's now a manager in baseball who's younger than I am. Maybe 2. Actually, there are 2 because Stephen Vogt's younger than I am. Anyway, that's a story we can save for another edition of the show that may never air. But the Braves happy to pick up the 6-1 win, and we got a lot more to talk about here on the Braves Postcast. We will get inside the line score, the box score, the performance by Charlie Morton, some other interesting facts from this outing by Charlie that I think will be quite interesting to get into. And, of course, we got to talk about the marquee pitching matchup of the weekend, which happens tomorrow afternoon at Truist Park, Saturday to be more specific. Paul Skenes on the mound for the Pirates, Max Freid for the Braves. We'll get into all of that as the Braves Postcast continues. Summer travel is heating up, especially travel for baseball games, so it's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to know more about. We're talking about your rival cities. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city because goodness knows fans like to follow their favorite team around, but you might as well have some fun in some of these different locales, whether it's a trip up to Philadelphia, maybe all the way up to New York. I don't know. You could stop over in D.C., do the whole tourist thing, and see if the Braves can figure out a way to possibly beat the Nationals this year up there. We'll see if that can be a thing that they do. But either way, from hotels that overlook the stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. that your summer travel is covered this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or the Booking.com app. Summertime means nothing but great baseball, and the Braves have been playing better of late and looking to keep things going. And you can bet on all the action on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200. You can bet on anything from MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Let's get inside the line score and box score of a 6-1 Braves win over the Pirates on Friday night at Truist Park. The Braves improved to 45-35, 6 runs, 10 hits, no errors, and they left 8 men on base. The Pirates, 1 run. It came in the 9th inning, 6 hits, no errors, and they left 7 men aboard. Charlie Morton picks up the win. He improves to 5-4, gets that season ERA down under 4 as well with his 6 1/3 innings of scoreless baseball. Martin Perez, meanwhile, takes the loss. Braves got to him for 6 runs over 4 innings of work as they took the opener. I talked about some of the interesting things and facts that come out of this Charlie Morton performance. Let's talk a little bit about it here because Charlie, 6 1/3 innings, shutout ball, 3 hits, 1 walk, 1 hit batsman, 7 strikeouts. You talked about how he got a little bit stronger as the night went on as well, but how about a cool stat that comes from the victory? And I know the pitcher win is everybody's favorite statistic, but now with that win over his former team, Charlie Morton has now beaten all 30 big league clubs. Jake, he's just the 22nd pitcher in baseball history to do that.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty great accomplishment, especially in today's game where wins aren't necessarily a big focus of a lot of players, and a lot of times pitchers don't hang around sometimes to get those wins. But for Charlie Morton, obviously it speaks to the longevity of his career, it speaks to how good he has been, and just it's a great accomplishment. Like you said, not a lot of people have done it, so great to see that for Charlie Morton on this night, and be able to pick up a win for the Braves, obviously, but to be able to get that accomplishment, I'm sure that's something that he's going to just make it extra special.
Yeah, just go ahead and throw that baseball in the trophy case. And yeah, again, it speaks to longevity, and the win is a little bit harder to get. I mean, I know starters obviously are going to have probably the more traditional route to get it than a reliever is going to have, but beating all 30 teams, just a little feather in the cap, or at least the answer to a trivia question for Charlie Morton. The Pirates offense, though, we knew it was not among MLB's best, but I felt like some really good stuff going tonight. And you talked about as he got going, then he really started to just refine, I feel like, what he was doing out there on the mound. Regardless of the strength of the opponent, you still got to go out there and execute. And Jake, we've seen times this year where that may have been the hardest part for Charlie Morton, but tonight it seemed like he was able to figure it out and make the adjustments he needed to as he went along to get even better.
Yeah, and the one thing with Charlie Morton and these bad starts that he's had, it's usually just one inning a lot of times where things just kind of get away from him, and he didn't really have that tonight. As I said early on, he hit a batter, he walked a batter to start the second inning, but was just really able to kind of dial things in and really didn't have a ton of pressure in this game on him. So you love to see that from Charlie Morton, and to be able to do that, you have to have your full arsenal working, and I feel like he did tonight. You mentioned it, had everything going, but for me, particularly that curveball and that changeup, had 7 whiffs on 16 swings on the curveball, but he had 6 whiffs on 10 swings with that changeup. So being able to have both of those pitches working for him, having some good fastball command obviously goes a long way. A called strike plus whiff percentage of 35. Again, anything over 30 is really good. So just had it all kind of dialed in this one. Through a couple of really good sinkers, some cutters in there. So again, it's Charlie Morton, when he is on, when he has good command of that curveball, is able to backdoor some. Got a hitter looking in the game as well with that curveball. When he's able to control it like that way on both sides of the plate, it's still really hard for batters to pick up Charlie Morton. That curveball is still one of the best in the game. It's just sometimes it gets away from him a little bit. And again, sometimes it's just one inning, and it's hard for him to kind of find control of that quickly and dial it back in. But he really didn't have that issue tonight.
No, and it seems like he is really, and I know we've talked about this a lot throughout the course of his starts here in the first half, use the curveball as a pitch to get over at times. I know it's a swing and miss pitch to expand the zone, but he's also been able to, I feel like, at least get more called strikes on it this year than I had recognized in the past. Maybe that's just anecdotal, but it seems like that's something he's done. And you mentioned the changeup. Charlie Morton is no secret. Fastball, curveball is what has been his big success, what will continue to be a big part of his success, but adding a few new pitches to that overall arsenal or just utilizing them more and throwing different versions of the fastball has also made him, I guess, a little bit more crafty if a right-hander is allowed to be just that. We saw something I'm going to call a version of the 40-40 club in this game. Morton was relieved by Jesse Chavez, who went an inning and a third, couple of strikeouts for him. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but not too many pitchers in baseball older than this pair. I believe it's just Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer joining the age 40 club here this season as well. But it's a rarity to see one 40-year-old pitcher, let alone two of them, one of them relieving the other. And it's a really fascinating tale if you think about this as well, Jake, because Charlie Morton and Jesse Chavez, they were teammates way, way back with the Pirates in the early years of their career. Now they're teammates again here in their age 40 season and what very well may be the last year for both. Chavez has already said as much. Morton, I think, is just kind of taking it year to year right now.
That's crazy. I forgot about that they crossed paths in Pittsburgh as well. So kind of coming full circle there. But, it's great to have those guys in the clubhouse because they can bring a lot of experience. It helps with the younger guys. But when they also can perform like they're doing at that age, I mean, that just adds another layer to it. I don't know when the Jesse Chavez statue is going to get built, but they should probably get to work on that. I mean, what he's done in a Braves uniform and what he's done in other uniforms is just completely ridiculous. The legend of Jesse Chavez will never die here in Atlanta. So, just happy for his success. Happy, again, to have both of those guys who are, again, just great clubhouse leaders, but they're also getting it done on the field.
Yeah, if I did my research right on this as well, because I heard Ben Ingram and Joe Simpson talking about a cool stat that the only other 40-something pitchers who have thrown more scoreless appearances or as many as Charlie has this year with 3 of 6 innings or more. So 6 innings of scoreless baseball, 6+ innings. The only guys who've done it as many or more times, Warren Spahn and Phil Niekro. I thought that was a cool stat. That got me to thinking, who's the last 40-something-year-old Braves pitcher to even do this? Had to go on back to Tom Glavine in his final year. I believe it was his second start back with the Braves. Tom Glavine was calling the game on TV tonight, former teammate of Charlie Morton. And if you really want to get crazy and inside baseball, or at least inside the Braves, you can go all the way back to the early 1940s on just 4 pitchers in Braves history. Charlie Morton, teammate of Tom Glavine, who was a teammate of Phil Niekro, who was a teammate of Warren Spahn. And you can get yourself all the way back to the early 1940s. Pretty crazy to think that that's the case. And as far as trivia is concerned, so I can round out this portion of the show and we can get back to our regularly scheduled Braves talk, Jesse Chavez and Charlie Morton also some of the last players in the league managed by Bobby Cox. 2 of them still right here in Atlanta. Entire lineup was producing. You talked about this. Everyone reached base at least once. Arcia had a walk in this game. He's the only one without a hit. Great to see that. And to go back to Marcell Ozuna, we haven't really had to talk about the struggles of Marcell because that has really not been a thing for most of this year. But I feel like he kind of needed that 3-run double. Over his previous 11 games, he'd knocked in just 2 runs, had just 1 home run, was batting 150 in those 11 games coming into the night. And it also gave him the National League lead in RBI back as he passed Alec Boehm, who had came into the day with 65, and Marcell now sitting on 67.
Yeah, great. Good to see that for Marcell. I'm not really concerned. I don't get concerned anymore about Marcell when he goes a couple of games a year not hitting. It's a long track record now. And even in the past couple of games, he's just been squaring up baseballs and hasn't been getting the results. So you knew it was just a matter of time, but good to see him come through. Like you said, on Thursday, I thought he had the game-winning hit there. I thought that was in the bag, either a 3-run homer or at least, a double off the wall to tie the game. Unfortunately, wasn't the case, but to come back, the next night and be able to come through and clear the bases. I mean, that's who you want up in that situation. He has been your guy all year long, and that's who you want up in those clutch spots. So good to see him get another chance like that to come through big. And with the way Morton was pitching, I mean, it was game over once that happened.
Yeah, everything was coming up the Braves' way. Exactly what they wanted in their return to Truist Park after a road trip that began with such promise with a win, the series win in New York, and ended with just a bit of a whimper as losing 2 out of 3 to the Cardinals. And any game to the Chicago White Sox, I think this year will probably make most teams feel. But that they were able to put behind them with a 6-1 win over the Pirates on Friday night. When we come back, we will talk about Saturday's matchup. It's going to be Max Freid against Paul Skenes, one of the most heralded pitching prospects we may ever see in our lifetime. And he has been showing off the goods here in his first 8 starts in the big leagues. We'll talk about that. Get you set up for the middle contest of this 3-game series as the Braves postcast continues. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. So with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying your MLB tickets. And they've got last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Just take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's talk a little bit about Game 2 of this series. We have arrived. We've been talking about it for a couple of days now at the very least, and I think anticipating it maybe longer than that, as Saturday's matinee matchup has a really intriguing pitching matchup. It is going to be Max Freid against Paul Skenes. Freid has been rolling after his 2-start hiccup to open the year, a 2.12 ERA over his last 12 starts. I think he's making a very strong case for an all-star appearance, and if we're being, if we're sizing up who could be an all-star and who might be representing the Pittsburgh Pirates, there's a good chance the guy on the mound on the other side might be up there as well. Skenes, the number 1 overall pick in 2023. Jake, I don't know about you, but I'm excited to see this guy, even if the results may not be exactly what the Braves are looking for. This is some must-see TV. That's what this kid's turned into.
He is. It's, maybe the biggest debut for a pitcher since Steven Strasburg. I know I can remember being excited about that, sitting down watching it. Same idea with Paul Skenes' debut. It didn't quite go as well as it did for Steven Strasburg, but since then, I mean, he has just been dialed in. He's been that dominant guy. And this is a guy that was just winning the College World Series with LSU a little over a year ago. Yeah. And now he's one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. So it's kind of crazy to say, but when you have the stuff that he has, I mean, he's averaging almost 100 miles per hour on his fastball. He has a devastating splitter that he calls a splinker. And it's just, it's crazy good stuff out there. It's going to be a tough battle for this Braves team and this Braves lineup that's struggled with strikeouts a good bit this year, more than we'd like to see. But we've also seen them rise up to the occasion in some of these matchups like this. We've seen them dial it in. We just had the start against Tarek Skubal, who is the AL Cy Young favorite going into that one. I think he still is. And, those are some of the best at-bats I've seen all year. So I'm looking forward to the challenge for this Braves offense. I'm looking forward to this pitching matchup just as a fan of baseball. And one thing I'll say about Paul Skenes in the couple of games I've watched, including that debut where he wasn't terrible, they just weren't going to let him go very long. Couple of games where he's pitched well, he's come out and the other team has gotten after that bullpen. So if you can work them, they obviously aren't going to push the rookie, get him out of there and get into that bullpen. But, just either way, this pitching matchup, it's one of the best I think we're going to see all year. And two guys that do it a little differently, right? I just said Paul Skenes averages 100, almost 100 on his fastball. Max Freid, he's up there. He's looking to get that weak contact. That's what he is elite at doing and keeping hitters off balance with the pitch mix that he has. So two pitchers, both pitching at the top of their game, and they're going to face off on Saturday. It's going to be a really fun matchup.
All right, we're going to unpack a little bit of that. I want to go back to the splinker portion of the discussion because I guess if you are a prospect slash, super prospect who can do the kind of things that Paul Skenes does with the triple digits, being able to invent your own pitch might be equally or more impressive. It's certainly gotten the attention of major league hitters. He's 4-0 as Skenes in 8 starts, 2.14 ERA, 61 strikeouts in 46 and a third innings. Yeah, those are numbers that are going to have him in the running for the Rookie of the Year. That's an award that is easily within his grasp if he continues to pitch that way. Interested to see how the Pirates manage him overall, innings-wise, as the year rolls on. But you brought up a very interesting point. If you are able to, even if his results are good, elevate that pitch count and force him out of the game, that would give the Braves the opportunity to do some work against a bullpen for the Pirates that has been more shaky than not, more times than not this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely the game plan for the Braves. Now, they're a team that they're going to go up there hunting their pitch, and they get it. It'd be a one pitch at bat. We just know that about this team. That has certainly been their strategy. But, I think with a guy in Paul Skenes that is going to have good strikeout stuff, and the strikeout batters, you're going to have to throw a lot of pitches. So there may be some at bats where they fall behind, 0-2, 1-2, and you're going to have to see this Braves team kind of battle in the at bat. That's what I'm really looking for. In these at bats where they do fall behind early, are they able to lay off some tough pitches, foul some tough pitches off, and make him work? I think that's going to be a key for the Braves in this game to get him out of there and try to get to that bullpen. So really looking forward to seeing, again, this Braves lineup. What can they do here? You look at the last couple of games. I know the game didn't go as the way they wanted to on Thursday. That first inning, didn't score, but made Chad Cole throw 20 pitches. And same thing tonight, didn't score in that first inning, but they made the starter throw over 20 pitches in that first inning. So try to make this kid work. They're not going to really overextend him, having him throw, 90, 100 pitches, anything like that. Make him throw a ton of innings on what's going to probably be a really hot day in Atlanta. So I think that's really the strategy for this Braves team. And that's what I'm looking forward to watching, is how do they battle in some of these at-bats where they fall behind early.
Yeah, and if the heat doesn't get you, the humidity certainly will. It might even be a couple degrees cooler this weekend than it will be coming up next week. But either way, it's going to be, I think, something both pitchers will have to contend with. And Max Freid is pretty used to doing that. And you talk about the difference in these two guys. Freid has an arsenal that is at least 6 pitches, sometimes 7. He says he's throwing a curveball or slider, not throwing a sweeper, but that started to show up in his overall pitch mix as well. So if we want to give him credit for a 7th, I guess we can. But whatever the case, whatever the pitch, Max Freid has really figured things out since those first couple of rough starts that he had this year. That seems like a distant memory at this point because of how well he has been pitching. The ERA down to 3 on the season. Freid is 7-3 overall. The righty Skenes, again, 4-0 with a 2.12 ERA. Two very different pitchers. Skenes is going to pile up the strikeouts. Freid, though, he's able to carve up a lineup here and there, but it's just going to, again, be a completely different approach, different side, different handedness, all that kind of stuff. But Max Freid has been bringing the goods for the Braves for a number of years.
He has been, and I'm still upset about that missed call the first start of the year because the stats are great, and maybe he's going to be in that NL Cy Young discussion at the end. But I still can't. I know you said it's kind of a forgotten, but for me, I'm still a little bitter about it just because the numbers are great right now. They could be even better for Max Freid, but what he has done to kind of turn things around since those first 2 starts. I mean, he's been the ace that we've all kind of expected and come to know for this Braves team. And, I love watching him pitch. It's the same discussion we have between him and Spencer Strider. Both guys, top of the rotation, number 1 starters, but they get it done in different ways. And I love watching Max Freid, especially when he's on and he has all those pitches working for him, to be able to see him just carve up a lineup. And, as a hitter, you just don't know what you're going to get at bat to at bat. And that's just the danger of facing a Max Freid, is that he can drop the curveball on you. He can bust you inside with 96 or 95, as he's done a lot this year. And then he's got a slider. He's got everything to mix in there. So just love watching Max Freid work. He's been outstanding for the Braves. It's a 60% ground ball rate as well. He's getting that weak contact. It's just, you hope that it's weak enough where it's going to fielders and the defense is on their game behind them. That's certainly a key for Max Freid when he's on the mound. Arcia and Albies made some more good plays tonight. You talked about Austin Riley and the defense that he had over there at third base. So that's been really good for him as well. And that's what you got to have when Max Freid's on the mound, because he's going to get that weak contact. You just got to make the plays behind him.
Yeah, and I believe the Braves, if I looked at this correctly, have one of, if not the best overall fielding percentages as an infield, which I know that's not the only stat, but it's certainly good when you're making fewer errors than not. I will stipulate that, and we can go beyond that in the numbers and in a lot of other ways, but it has been very solid. The left side, I feel like, has been particularly good this year with what Riley's done, and Orlando Arcia had a ridiculous play early in this game as well. I'm introducing a new metric for me that's going to be called Slick Plus, for even more than slick plays, the slickest of plays. Orlando Arcia gets that award on this night. Braves will send Max Freid to the mound against Paul Skenes, 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time, the first pitch at Truist Park, as the Braves and the Pirates meet in Game 2 of this 3-game series. And that brings us to the end of this edition of the Braves Postcast. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports, Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. and leave us those likes and comments. Share the show with a friend and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Once again, Atlanta with a 6-1 win over the Pittsburgh Pirates, back in the win column, got the homestand started right. They'll look for more this weekend with a big pitching matchup on Saturday as Max Freid faces Paul Skenes. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We will catch you next time. And until then, so long, everyone.